Welcome to Action Hour. It's Lindsey Baker, and I have some big news for you. Philadelphia could be the first U.S. city to adopt electric carriages and ban horse carriages. Now, that's the goal of this organization that we're going to be talking to today. But let's watch this.
Now, there are electric carriages that would keep the companies operating without, the horses. But to many people, the charm of the carriage ride is the horse and the clippity-clopping sound the horse makes walking through the city streets.
No, I think I did it because of the horse and the carriage part of it.
Philly Councilmember Mark Squilla tells me he doesn't have a timeline or any legislation drafted, but he says he is looking to bring electric carriage prototypes here to Philly to test them out. Folks here are running out of patience, though. They want this little taste of history to actually become history.
We have to unite and speak out against this horse-drawn carriage until they are a relic of the past.
In Center City, Tim Furlong, NBC 10 News.
Thank you, Jody.
And of course, that was our own Stephanie Curson, who is here today, along with Tiffany Stair. And you guys represent, or you are Revolution Philadelphia, or Rev Philly. I love that name. Thank you for being here, ladies. I'll start with you, Stephanie. Why is it so important to get a ban on horses now, to talk your councilman into doing it now?
Sure. Great question. Thanks for having us. Now is the perfect time because currently there are no horses on the streets of Philadelphia. The stable the horses were being housed in has been closed and sold to developers. So there will be apartments being built on that property. So the horses have been dispersed to farms, mostly up north. So there's no horses working right now. So it is such a good time to get these electric carriages on the street while there are no horses working, and just kind of make that transition.
Right. And I want to show another video. You guys actually in January, you did a protest, and let's just take
I think it was beautiful with it being a horse myself.
But just a few blocks away at City Hall.
What do we want?
Carriage-free Philly!
When do we want it?
Now!
Woo! Thank you.
Lots of folks with a very different take on horse carriages.
Let's do this, Philly.
They have gathered thousands of signatures and are now pushing Philly's City Council to ban the carriages.
And we do have that petition. We're going to be putting that up a little bit later. Tiffany, I'd like you to talk. I know you guys have been working on this as activists for a very long time. Give us a little bit of your background in trying to get this ban.
Thank you for having us. We're so excited to be here. This has been a wild ride for us since the beginning of our campaign in Philadelphia. Initially, I've been an animal rights activist for about 6 years now. And what pushed me to start the horse-drawn carriage campaign was I saw a viral video in 2020 of a carriage horse in New York City named Aisha, who collapsed while working, and she ultimately died. And that video affected me so much that I went downtown to look at the carriage horses in Philadelphia, and I thought to myself, I have to do something about this. So Stephanie and I joined forces, and we rallied a very dedicated and passionate group of activists, and we started on this campaign, and it's only been about 2 years.
Wow, that's amazing. You just mentioned the collapse of Aisha, but we do have Ryder, which happened in New York. That was a big tragedy, and I do have a video. Let's watch.
Many speculated that it was heat exhaustion. The temperature last Wednesday in high 80s, but not reaching the city law threshold of 90 that forces Hansom cab drivers to stable their horses. The Hansom Cab Union has maintained the incident came without warning, that Ryder tripped and collapsed due to a neurological disease which can cause loss of balance. But animal rights activists deny this assessment, claiming Ryder's collapse stems from neglect.
The fact that Ryder displayed neurological signs, muscle atrophy, poor body condition, was so underweight, these are chronic conditions, not short-term conditions.
And of course, that was activist Adita Bernkran, who is in New York City with NYC Class. And she is also trying to, along with others, help ban carriage horses forever. So tell us a little bit about the pushback that you are getting. Who would like to address that? Maybe Stephanie? Like, why is this so difficult when it seems like it would be the best thing for everyone? Why do you think it's so difficult to get this through?
Yeah, I just think politics comes into play. When you're trying to kind of transition a business from an inhumane model to a humane model. I think that horse carriages have been around so long, people are just so used to seeing them, and it's just ingrained that, oh, it's so romantic and nice to take a horse carriage ride. So I think just shifting people's mindsets in that way, especially politicians, I don't think they want to step on anyone's toes as far as in the business realm. I mean, honestly, when we're out protesting and educating the public, we have a lot of support. People just come up to us and sign our petition and they want to talk about it. So we found, as far as tourists go and Philadelphians, they are like very, very supportive of what we're doing. I think it's just kind of shifting the mindset of city council and then the industries in the city, because this hasn't been done before in the United States. We're hoping to be the first. So I think it's just that mindset shift.
Right. And once one city goes, they will all go. Now, one of the things that they always say is, oh my goodness, what about the jobs? And I do have another clip I would like to share with our audience about the electric the horseless carriages and how it's been for the drivers.
Uno de los elementos fundamentales era el bienestar y asegurar que los conductores tuvieran un mejor ingreso económico, que ganaran más dinero. Entonces logramos hacer una buena alianza con los calandrieros, con los conductores de los carruajes, y que ellos estuvieran convencidos, o que la mayoría de ellos estuvieran convencidos que era un cambio que iba a ser bueno para ellos.
Nuestro ingreso con la calandria eléctrica se aumentó en un 100%. Nos va mucho mejor con la calandria eléctrica.
There are also environmental benefits.
And that was what I was going to bring up next. There's the ecological aspect, there's the humane aspect. Let's stay on the humane or inhumane aspect of having carriage horses in a city. How about you, Stephanie? I know in one of the clips, a woman said, oh, she really only took the ride because there was a horse involved. And I noticed that in that clip, they were going through a commercial area of a city, a current city. So can you address that a little bit, like that concern of the public and how, yeah, go ahead with that, sorry.
I mean, I think having electric carriage is going to be exciting. It's something new. It's something novel. People will get used to not seeing horses. I think more people were upset by seeing the horses on the street than people will be upset not seeing them on the street. I think everyone walks by them and in their mind, they're like, that doesn't look right. It's hot out or it's raining. Like they shouldn't be here standing on pavement with cars and buses and motorcycles weaving out. It's just, I think people recognize that as dangerous. So I think people will get used to seeing those new carriages, and they're beautiful. They're pretty much the same carriages. And we don't have to worry about the animal being attached to it.
Yeah, let's watch another clip. Look at the carriages.
Puede aplicar en otros renglones prioritarios para el municipio para atender otras necesidades de la población. Es un ejemplo de lo que gana el municipio, por ejemplo.
Yo les voy a ser sincero, como yo duré 25 años, sí, me dejó cierta nostalgia, ¿verdad?, de los caballos. Estaba acostumbrado entre caballos, pero si empieza uno a pensar y analizar todo, dice no, pues esto es mejor para los caballos porque se van al campo.
Y yo, por supuesto, y todos los compañeros que ya traemos calandria eléctrica, estamos completamente satisfechos y seguros de que queremos calandria eléctrica.
La gente local se siente muy orgullosa de que Guadalajara sea la primera ciudad que ha logrado transitar hacia la sustitución de los caballos por vehículos eléctricos.
I wanted to show everyone your website in just a minute. So while I find that, why don't you each start with Tiffany? Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got involved in all of this?
Well, like I had previously said, I've been an activist for animals for about 5 years, and Rev Philly is a relatively new group that was formed just a few years ago, and we are, founded and organized by women. And when we were looking at campaigns that had, it was in the middle of COVID and when Asia collapsed, and we had decided to just get started on the horse carriage campaign. We thought that was a very winnable pressure campaign that could change the course of that industry forever in Philadelphia. And it looks like it is. So we have many other plans for the future for more campaigns, but this is our primary focus, and we're staying on course and 100%, involved in this process until the legislation is there.
That is amazing and so important to keep the pressure on, as you say. And now I'd like to make a little bit of a pledge to our audience on how they can help. I know there's a petition that you have. Can you talk about the first thing that came to my mind was, well, I don't live in Philly. So talk about how everyone can help, please, if you would. Let's give that to Stephanie.
Sure. I think because the carriage industry is, based on tourism, anyone, whether they're in Philadelphia or visiting, I think that the politicians and people in Philly need to hear from the visitors, the tourists, because it's mostly the tourists that take the carriage ride. So I think if they know that there's strong support from people outside of Philadelphia that would take the electric carriage ride and support that, I think that will help push the campaign along. So if people outside of Philly would like to help, they can reach out to Mark Squilla. He, was pretty responsive to emails. You can call his office and just tell him that you support a ban on horse carriages and you would be interested in taking an electric carriage ride. I think that the need is there, and that, like I said, the majority of people want to see these horse carriages gone because they know how cruel and dangerous it is.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about that. Tiffany, would you like to cover that one?
Well,
how dangerous it is and what the public danger, I don't think people realize it.
Oh my gosh, you don't realize it until you see a headline making international news that a horse collided with a car. And, I think this happened in New York City maybe a year and a half ago. A horse had collided with a car in Midtown and flipped over the horse flipped over top the car and collapsed. And it was a horrific, bloody scene and people were horrified. And you don't really think about that until you see it happen. So, when you look at a major city like Philadelphia, you see, buses, you see trolleys, you see cars, you hear sirens and horns and people bustling. The last thing you expect to see is a large prey animal such as a horse. It actually kind of looks ridiculous when you think about it. So having a horse in a major city with all of that stimuli is very dangerous, not only for the horse, but for people. I mean, there are no regulations for these carriages to operate in the way of safety. So there are no seatbelts, there are no doors. Wow. And, a horse gets spooked and runs into traffic and you're going down with that horse. It is very dangerous. And oftentimes we would see drivers not holding reins and taking pictures of people sitting in their carriages and the horse is left unattended. Anything could happen at any moment. And that would be tragic. Someone could lose their life, including the horse. And like I said, people really don't realize how dangerous it is until there is a tragedy. And we want to avoid that happening in Philadelphia, because the dangers are there.
And the sad thing is, the horse, what will happen to the horse afterwards, who through no fault of his or her own, collides with a car and then is put down. Or I don't know, I'm sure they're, they don't go back to work. But anyway, did you want to add anything, Stephanie?
Yeah, I think, people see the horses on the street and I think they take for granted that, oh, they're taken care of, it's fine, or they wouldn't be there. But I know you think about the horse standing on pavement for 9 hours a day, breathing in those exhaust fumes of all the traffic around them, their nose to tailpipe when they're navigating the streets, cars are whipping around them. It's not safe. And in Philadelphia, they're allowed to be outside up until about 91 degrees. And that's hot. And that temperature is taken at the airport. And where the horses work in Center City, it's even hotter. So I think there's all these things that people don't see and they kind of make it that way, because you're not thinking about the health of the horse. You look at this horse, he looks plump, he looks okay, and you don't think anything's wrong. But these horses are often suffering in silence. And so we're here to stop that.
Right. I believe that. I heard also about the bit in the horse's mouth. Their head is held in an unnatural position. They have, and sometimes going up hills. I don't know if there's a lot of hills in Philadelphia, but it's a tremendous strain. They said that the carriage, tell me if I'm right, the carriage is about 500 pounds.
We've heard more, I believe. I think maybe over 1,000
pounds. So it's like a 1,000.
And where our horses are in Philadelphia, where they lived was a few miles from where they work. So they would trek back and forth every day, and they would be going over some major like roads with 4 lanes or 5 lanes of traffic, and they have to make that trek every time they go, to and from work. So that's, another huge safety issue, because those parts of the city aren't used to navigating around horses. And like you said about the billet, they're wearing all this uncomfortable gear. They have blinders on. And so the horse's natural tendencies, are completely stripped from them. They can't see what's around them. They can't move their head. They can't run if there's danger. They're strapped to this carriage. So it's everything that a horse should have in a healthy, natural environment is stripped from them.
Yeah, it's horrific. Their life during the day is nothing but horrific labor and probably a lot of pain and suffering. And then they just, at the end of the road, they wind up, how many of them, if either of you who's more comfortable, how many of them go to wind up going to slaughter? Is it estimated? We have no way of proving it, but do they wind up going to slaughter? What happens to them afterwards? I probably should ask, because I'm making an assumption, but
of course. I don't have any numbers, but it's safe to assume, these horses are used for profit, okay? And if they aren't producing that profit, where do they go? In Philadelphia, we were assured that all of the horses were rehomed to carriage associated farms that support the carriage industry. So we don't know if they're still working or they're retired forever, but we were assured that they were not taken to auction. But my belief, and just from what I've seen and read and heard from people that go to these auctions, so many of them end up in that pipeline where they go and they get sold for a few dollars and they're killed or shipped to another country for meat.
It's horrible. I want to show, Stephanie had taken a video and she put it on TikTok of where the stables were. And this is typical. We've seen it in Griffith Park. It's just a very small area. The horses, like you said earlier, have nowhere to run, but let's just watch.
Currently 93 degrees outside around 2 o'clock on Saturday, May 21st. Here is the horse barn. This is their turnout area. As you can see, no real grass for them to graze on. There's a horse outside. Not much shade either for these horses, unless they stand directly under that awning. No shade for these horses.
Wow. Now you had done a protest and showed up and it was empty. So apparently people probably would say, well, if they're no longer, the horse is no longer there, what is the urgency? Who would like to address that?
Yeah, I can speak on that. So I think now is the perfect time. The horses are not in the city. Why bring them back? Why give the carriage company an opportunity to build a new stable, put money into that when they could be putting money into electric carriages? So I think before they start to rebuild, get their license, get the stable property, inspected and all that, let's just end it now and just make a ban so that that company can't reopen the carriages and another company can't open. So I think the timing now, it's never been as perfect.
It doesn't seem like it's a great profit maker for them. These companies don't seem to be doing that well. And in fact, if I remember correctly, when we were going through the Griffith Park, the whole thing with Griffith Park, he said that he wasn't making very much money. I don't know anything about that part of it. But what I do know is that the drivers that have transition over to the electric cars, according to some of the press and videos, and I have one I'm going to play, the driver says that it's much better for them and they actually are making more money, spending more time with their families. The jobs are there. I'll let them tell.
Puede aplicar en otros renglones prioritarios para el municipio para atender otras necesidades de la población. Es un ejemplo de lo que gana el municipio, por ejemplo.
Yo les voy a ser sincero, como yo duré 25 años, sí, me dio cierta nostalgia, ¿verdad? De los caballos, que estaba acostumbrado entre caballos, pero si empieza uno a pensar y analizar todo, dice, no, pues esto es mejor para los caballos porque se van al campo.
Y yo, por supuesto, y todos los compañeros que ya traemos Carlandia eléctrica, estamos completamente satisfechos y seguros de que queremos Carlandia eléctrica.
La gente local se siente muy orgullosa de que Guadalajara sea la primera ciudad que ha logrado transitar hacia la sustitución de los caballos por vehículos eléctricos.
Why is it so important to you ladies that Philadelphia be the first city, and why do you feel it's most important? I'll start with Tiffany, but I'll let you each weigh in on that.
So, Philadelphia has such a rich history as far as our country goes. And, people are not coming to Philadelphia for a horse-drawn carriage ride. Let's face it. They just happen to see the horses and say, okay, let's take a ride. So it's important that somebody sets a precedent for the humane treatment of carriage horses, meaning getting them off the streets. And we are very excited and looking forward to Philadelphia being the first city to do that. And, to be honest with you, that wasn't something that we saw coming. I know we'll talk about it more, but this was something that was kind of thrown into our laps unexpectedly. We did not expect this to happen. So it couldn't be a better time. And we are very excited that this could be happening here first.
Yes, it's like you have the momentum, and those are the hounds of Baskerville that live in my house. But anyway, I'm going to let Stephanie comment now on that question.
We're excited for Philly to be the first. Philly is an activist city. Whenever you're in Philadelphia, you see people out there, protesting something. And so because Philadelphia is such a powerful and strong activist city, I think it's the perfect place to get this started. And we're so close to New York, and we're close to other cities nearby that I think if we transition to electric carriages, that other cities will see how successful it's going to be and how people will come here for the humane tourism, and hopefully they will be on board as well.
Right. And we want to talk about your donor as well and the story. Who would like to get into that? The story of how you guys, these two electric cars, carriages that are offered to replace the horses. How did this all come about? Like, first this happens and the horses are suddenly gone, hopefully in a good place. And then all of a sudden you get this offer, or how did that work?
I'll start. This couldn't be more meant to be. So back in January, we go to a protest. The horses are not there. The stables are closed. The horses have been rehomed. The company closed its doors and quietly left town. We were elated. So immediately we get right on the phone to call Mark Squilla, the councilman in Philadelphia that is tasked with introducing this legislation. And we took a meeting with him with a huge group of people. And we thought, here it is, the ban is coming. And he said, no way, I'm not putting out any legislation until there are electric carriages. And we left that meeting feeling very defeated, and we weren't sure what was going to happen. And just a few weeks later, we got a call from the amazing Allie with Voters for Animal Rights in New York City. And she said, I want to introduce you to Josh Fox and Eric Lerner. They are a part of the Brady Hunter Foundation, and we want to see if it's possible to bring the e-carriages that they are offering to donate to Philadelphia first. The plan initially was to start in New York City, but some things were delaying the process, so they thought maybe get started in Philadelphia instead. And it just, like I said, it was fate. It just, kind of happened, and it couldn't have come at a better time.
So it just seems like it's meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
Stephanie, did you?
It is meant to be. And I think Philly will be the first. And Mark Squilla, when we met with him and the Brady Hunter Foundation, he seemed really excited and he seemed really on board. So, there's really no more obstacles. And we're just really excited to get these electric carriages on the street, thanks to the Brady Hunter Foundation. I mean, it's amazing that there's people out there that, want to put their efforts, their philanthropy into this project. And it just, shows us that we're on the right track.
Well, let's give them a little bit of a shout out. What do they do? I know it's a big organization in New York City, but can you talk a little? Do you know a little bit more about why they're doing this? Why do they feel it's important? I'm sure they've shared with you.
Yeah. So Josh Fox, he's actually a CEO of a company called Bottom Line Concepts, and from our meetings with him and talking to him about why he's doing this is that he was greatly affected by Ryder collapsing in New York City, and he thought to himself, I have the means to do this, why not do it? And that's how it started. And with that idea came his foundation that he started. Brady Hunter is actually named after his 2 dogs, and he wants to bring electric carriages to every major city where there are horse carriages, so they can be replaced with electric, and hopefully, end this industry forever, not just in Philadelphia, everywhere.
That's very exciting. I was thinking Brady Hunter, this financial firm, it just had that kind of ring to it. And what do you know? Let's watch this about the Ryder protest and the footage of Ryder.
There's no excuse! Anger and outrage from animal rights activists over a carriage horse collapsing on a Manhattan street last week.
This horse was obviously suffering.
Caroline Smith claims she saw the horse named Ryder in distress and having trouble walking in Central Park last Wednesday, hours before he lay down on the asphalt on 9th Avenue and 45th Street. Smith provided New York One with this photo.
This poor horse looked like he was going to collapse right in front of me, and this man worked him for 4 more hours.
I want to show your petition right now that you have. Before I forget, it's on change.org. And you could take a screen capture of that, I'm sure, and Google it, but it will be at the top of this broadcast. It will be in the description right afterwards. So ladies, we saw what happened there to Ryder. We saw the outrage from the public. We have the momentum. It looks like everything's going the right way. And this is sometimes when things fall through because people think, oh, this is easy peasy, slide into home base. But I want to give you both the opportunity to again stress why it's so important for people to get involved. We'll start with Stephanie.
So Revolution Philadelphia, we're a small grassroots, like Tiffany said, women-led animal rights organization. And this is one of the campaigns that we are fighting for. So we have an amazing group of core volunteers that are with us for all of our protests and outreach and things that we do in the community. And we need more. I mean, we can always take volunteers. We always need more help. We want people that care about animals, that love horses, that love Philadelphia to help and show that there is support for a ban. 30,000 signatures is great, but I mean, more outreach, more outpouring of support can only help our campaign here.
Right. And it, like you said, it can be from anyone, anywhere. And
Yes.
it's a very global issue because Guadalajara, let's give a shout out to Guadalajara for being is it the first city, correct me if I'm wrong, going electric carriages, and that's a huge thing. We do have a link to their site. I'm going to be putting up right at the top of compassionatetourism.com. You can watch that. In fact, I think we might have a minute or two to watch it. I'm going to give you each, though, first an opportunity. If there's anything we did not cover that you wish to talk about, we'll start with Tiffany. And I'll bring that video up to end.
So I just want to really encourage people out there. Like I said earlier, we are just regular people that have full-time jobs and families and fur kids. And we saw an injustice and we wanted to do something about it. And we did. We put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. We had a lot of highs and lows in this campaign. But for me, the take home is that if you see something happening that you want to change, do it. You can do it, no matter who you are. I mean, animals, they do have voices, but they need our voices to amplify theirs. And it's really important, as Philadelphia becomes the first city to do this, that other cities follow suit. And we believe that that's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to see the success in Philadelphia and go from there. But you know, my big message to people is that if you see something with an animal that you know is wrong, get involved and do something about it, because you can actually change the course of history for your city and do something great. And we see that happening in front of us, and you know, it couldn't be more amazing.
Fantastic and well said. Stephanie.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, like she said, if you see an injustice, if something isn't sitting right with you, you're looking at something, whether it's animals used for entertainment or whatever it is, if it doesn't sit well in your gut, you know something's wrong, you do have the power to do something more.
I think your sound went out there for a moment. I'm going to go ahead and show the video.
Our campaign, so we are happy to help other people. We had mentors like Jody Whittaker of Chicago, and so we're more than happy to help other cities, and you know, that want to take this on. There's so many people in other cities working on this, but definitely be that voice for the animals if that's where your heart draws you.
I'm going to come back to you ladies before the end, but I'm going to play the video now. So let's see it. Oops. Am I going to play the video? Yes. Are we not getting sound? We should be. Huh.
It's one of the most recognizable skylines in the world. It's beautiful, romantic, tough, and honest. It's a melting pot of people, each with a unique background and story to tell. Our differences make us stronger without blurring an important identity that we share. We are New Yorkers, and New Yorkers have never been afraid of change.
Mi experiencia en Acalandia fue muy agradable, ya que vimos museos, iglesias, vimos un tour por la ciudad.
Guadalajara is the first city maybe in the whole world that made the change from horse-drawn carriages into electric vehicles.
Que los cambios siempre generan una resistencia. Las personas y los gobiernos generalmente se sienten muy cómodos con dejar las cosas como están.
It's been a very interesting experience because before there was not a solution to replace the horse carriages.
Tenemos que comprender que la sociedad tiene que avanzar y que el avanzar a veces representa un reto que vale la pena transitar.
And now there's not only a solution, but it's a better solution.
Tourism is key to New York City. Compassionate and responsible tourism is tourists choosing activities that don't involve questionable or cruel practices. Electric carriages would be a huge improvement for the city that never sleeps, and a growing number of cities around the world are making that very transition right now.
And there's a good chance, a very, very, very good chance that Philly is going to be the first U.S. city to do so. So ladies, thank you so much for being on today. Please keep us posted as this progresses. I know it's going to be amazing, and I know this is going to be the catalyst for the end of the cruelty to horses. Hopefully we will win this battle, and you guys are amazing. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Lindsay.
Thank you.